I really take pride in every week I'm going to come up with a brand new intro and the people are going to listen to it and they're going to say, wow, this is such a great show. That guy's funny. And I just don't have it in me this week. I just can't do it anymore. My teams are all on the IR. I don't know up from down. Receivers that should be breaking out on teams with wide amount of targets going away or just not catching balls. I don't know. I can't do it anymore. But we do have a new intro song, so that's cool. So, yeah.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
Welcome into Guys Being Dudes Fantasy Football. This is your host, Noah Obsfeld. And as always with me are my three best friends, Michael Smith, Jared Williams, and Kieran Day. Kieran looking drippy as usual for the YouTube audience. But if not, if you're on the podcast, then Jared is sounding drippy because that voice is magnificent. We are going through it right now in the football season, but you know what? You got to stick with it. Okay. The way champions are made, you put a chip on the shoulder, you put your feet in the dirt, you get low, and you grind. You go through the season. People are going to give up, but not you, okay? Because you're not a quitter. And all the dudes out there, we're not quitters. Right, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right, yes, sir.
Okay, we'll work on it. I know energy, Kieran was talking about this is the worst fantasy weekend of his life. I couldn't agree more. I don't think I usually start seasons like mediocre compared to my inferior fantasy football league mates, but man, this has been a tough one. How are you guys holding up?
Doing great over here. I feel like the only guy I have that has gotten hurt or gotten sick or that's been affected by these games is Austin Eckler. Get better soon, my sweet prince. But other than that, yeah, we're doing okay over here.
Yeah, I mean, you keyed me in a little bit. It's been a rough fantasy season for me, to say the least. But I think we practice what we preach. I'm not concerned. We just got to get to the playoffs. I got to stay on the waiver grind. I got to take advantage of people who are starting to zone out a little. There are fantasy games to be won throughout this season, but I mean, man, it has been a tough grind to even field the roster for some of my lineups. So you guys are keeping me in it.
Any given Sunday, man.
Yeah, the fans are keeping me in it. So you guys are inspiring us to keep grinding here.
The fan is keeping you in it. Anyways, this is Guys Being Dudes Fantasy Football. You can follow us on Twitter @DudesFootball. I said it right. Amazing. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. This is a big ticket show. Don't get it confused. Okay, let's get into some news. It's going to keep happening every week. It's all about our good friend COVID. It's chaotic. There's so much to go through. The bottom line right now is you got to stay ready, stay informed, and be ready to pivot, okay? Pivot. I don't know. Lakers, like that.
Let's go. Let's talk about the Lakers real quick.
Now, 2 more Titans tested positive, including Corey Davis, a relevant name for fantasy. And there's people popping up, Stephon Gilmore, and we'll see. We'll all know at the same time what the turnout of these games are. If the Titans-Bills do play, this isn't really affecting much. I mean, maybe a few more targets for Jonnu, maybe a few more targets for AJ coming back. Anyways, Stephon Gilmore, probably the Patriots' best player.
Besides their other best player that also has COVID.
Their right. 2 best players have gotten tested positive.
They better protect their 3rd best, Brian Hoyer.
Exactly. That's why they benched
exactly.
Didn't want him to go.
So I think that's enough COVID news. I mean, we'll find out the implications as soon as you guys do. Let us know if you have any questions on Twitter @DudesFootball. Getting into some football news, Bill O'Brien finally out as the Texan head coach, general manager, whatever, father of the team or something. That experiment is over. If you ever have a head coaching job, guys, number one rule of head coaching: don't trade away DeAndre Hopkins. That usually everyone who hasn't traded away DeAndre Hopkins, I think it's turned out better for than Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, that's the funniest part is the front office said, "Oh, you traded away DeAndre Hopkins? That's okay. Oh, you paid $70 million to Brock Osweiler? Oh, that's okay. Oh, you traded all of our first round picks? That's okay. But you get in a fight at practice with one player, you're out. It's like, what was the thought process behind this?
Yeah, as soon as you mess with JJ Watt, JJ Watt, he probably goes into the owner's office and just kind of like says what's going to happen.
He is Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is Houston. I like that. So we're going to see how that works out. Praying that my boy Brandon Cooks, they get him involved, because I don't know how you're not getting Brandon Cooks involved in that offense.
Unless there's some round pick for a guy that got 0 catches last week.
Interesting. I'm really into guys who get zero catches this season. It's crazy. Moving forward, Dwayne Haskins benched. Kyle Allen will be the start, and not only was he benched, he was shoved into the ground because he's now the third string behind Alex Smith. So we'll see the implications of that. I think it's going to look good for Antonio Gibson. We saw Kyle Allen with Christian McCaffrey last year. He's a check down master. That was DJ Moore's breakout season. I think the whole team gets a little boost, and I think one guy I'm going to be paying close attention to is Logan Thomas. Are you guys seeing any value there?
After last week's performance from him, I dropped him off my team, and it's just not something. It's not a straw I want to be grasping for right now.
Yeah, especially he's been targeted so heavily and hasn't produced. I think a name that I'm more curious about is, just like you said, Kyle Allen's a check down king, and Antonio Gibson comes in with that type of profile. So it could be interesting to see if that's a lead that might be experimented with a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see how that works out. If Kyle Allen can't get it done, we'll just have good old Alex Smith back in. A couple big running back injuries. Chubb sent to IR. Nick Chubb sent to IR with an MCL sprain. That's going to be a big factor for a lot of people. We'll get into that in details later. And Eckler out 4 to 6 with a hamstring. You gotta be working your team all year. This is why you can't get comfortable. You think 1 minute. I'm sure there's a bunch of guys there had that 10 spot in the draft. Ooh, Chubb and Eckler having a good season so far, and just like that, they weren't prepared with the running back depth, and now they're gonna lose. For 4 or 5 weeks in a row. Do you guys think both these guys will be back? But these are the kind of injuries where things go south for the team. They'll just send them home for the rest of the season. Or are you guys counting on these guys to come back and provide value later this season?
I think both have their concerns, in that Chubb and the Browns obviously have a running ready to take over in Kareem Hunt. So if Chubb doesn't necessarily progress at that rate and the Browns, say, are close to the playoff race, they may not push him back. Now, if they're in the thick of a playoff race, then they'll probably bring him back. But for Eckler, as we've seen, hamstring injuries aren't something to mess around with. So they're going to have to give him the full recovery time before they consider bringing him back. So I think they both have their concerns, but I do think they'll both come back and play around
100% agree.
Playoff push.
Dude, the plight of the hamstring right now. We've never. It's that got to be that preseason, the warm up, the lack of, smooth access to training facility or whatever it may be, shaking things up. Just guys aren't ready. So yeah, adapt or die this year. Again, this is Guys Being Dudes Fantasy Football. You can follow us on Twitter at Dudes Football. Follow us on Spotify and iTunes. Okay, guys, one big thing that you took away from this week, what you got?
I'll start, and we just touched on this team and didn't mention this player, and this was a guy we talked about last week that was in that points of the year, that wide receiver 2 range, anywhere from 12, 10 to 20 or so. And last week we mentioned was a guy that we could potentially bench for a better matchup, say CeeDee Lamb or something, and it's Terry McLaurin. And I think Terry McLaurin is matchup proof. Now, I said this thinking Dwayne Haskins was the quarterback. I don't really think it changes with Kyle Allen going forward. But he's had at least 7 targets in every game. He's had at least 60-plus yards. Especially in PPR, he's that good. I think he's a guy that you can set in your lineup and forget, even if it's Baltimore like last week or Pittsburgh or these great defenses. I think it's a guy that you can start every week and not be concerned.
Definitely with you on that one. I'll go next. Some guys that we took sort of early this year are just washed and not good, and they just shouldn't be in your lineup at all. And just because they're not big name, or because they are big name guys, you shouldn't be afraid to start these guys that you're picking up on the waiver wire ahead of them. I mean, we see what Mike Davis did. The first week Christian McCaffrey was out, if you had Mike Davis on your bench, you could have lost a matchup because of that. Maybe you played a guy like AJ Green instead, who is just proving to not be that guy anymore. T.Y. Hilton, I think there's a crazy stat about how since Andrew Luck retired, he hasn't had over like 85 yards or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Marvin Jones Jr., just not very good anymore. Hayden Hurst, we thought was going to be the guy for the Falcons. He was going to do Austin Hooper things. Turns out he's a 40 to 50-yard guy, maybe. Austin Hooper, you probably drop him now. Gronk, all these guys, you need to move on from them. Be snatching at the waiver wire for guys that we'll be talking about a little bit later.
Yeah, and I think mine was touched on to a certain extent a little bit earlier in the show is don't trust these hamstring injuries, especially we have a lot of big name players that are coming back from hamstring injuries in the coming weeks. And I would tread lightly on those injuries. Take into account, you see guys like Julio re-injuring and just one little cut that's the wrong way and you're out for the rest of the game. So, use that as a deciding factor when you're deciding what your start-sit decisions. And because we talked about that, another thing that I really learned is this is a quarter into the season. You have to let go of your draft expectations. I think that's something that I've struggled with and I'm starting to realize is you drafted these players thinking what they could be, and now you see what they are for the most case, and you need to be able to adapt to that. You need to be smarter than your competition and not latch on to everything that you were expecting out of someone. You got to adapt. You got to be quick on your feet. So, don't hold on too long or you'll be the one who's in the loss.
You got to let her go.
To add on to that, I think Devontae Adams owners probably are sleeping a little bit easier at night, seeing what happened to Julio Jones in that same game with a hamstring injury. He re-aggravated it. Not looking good. Whereas Devontae Adams, they rested him, which was very smart. They have a bye week this week, so he should be 100% the rest of the season. But
yeah, unless you're me and needed 5 points from him and didn't get it and lost your matchup.
I mean, right now we have the first overall pick, McCaffrey, Saquon. I mean, you're done for basically. I mean, good luck coming back from that. And then the first three receivers off the board, all huge names: Michael Thomas, Devontae Adams, and Julio Jones. Also, you're very disappointed. You're not doing well.
And Godwin.
Godwin. Yeah. I mean, there's tons of guys. So, guys, let's get into this. Here's some quarter season tips from yours truly, Noah. Okay. First, running back is getting thin as hell. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we're going to keep losing running backs. We're not going to know when this guy's going to have this COVID bye week. And you're always going to be able to pull off a receiver off the waivers. So, if you can take advantage of that and say, hey, I got a big name receiver, I got Chris Godwin, I got Julio Jones, and I just know right now having a running back is going to be worth more, trading a guy like Julio Jones or Godwin or even like a healthy receiver, I don't know who it's going to be, McLaurin, Amari Cooper, for a second, third tier running back, James Conner, James Robinson, any of the Jameses. That's not, even though that level of disparity between value might seem a little crazy, we have to put these positions into perspective. Exactly. That's why in a 14-team league, I always like to have a top 3 tight end because of the difference in depth, through the rest of the league. So similar philosophy here. Second tip is look for depth. Grab your handcuffs. Yesterday off the waivers in one league, I got T. Higgins and Laviska Shenault. Okay. And I am so confident in my receiver depth, I could even trade away a guy like Godwin and another piece for a guy like Carson, which is in the works. Wish me luck, guys. And then here's something interesting. Start to look at playoff schedules, because all you need to do is make the playoffs in the first place. But if you're sitting pretty, like my guy Jared here, who's 4-0 in multiple leagues, even though he's in the bottom 3 in points scored, because that's just kind of how Jared lives.
It's all about defense.
Take a look at playoff schedules. But if you are more like me and you're top in scoring, you're really talented, but you're just not lucky, all you need to do is make the playoffs. Go for that fourth seed or go for that sixth seed. That's all you need to do. You don't need to have a perfect season. So, look at your team and see what you need to do. This is also the part of the season where we start seeing some solidity in positional points versus different defenses. So every year there's going to be that one team that is just god-awful against tight ends. The few teams who are terrible against the passing game, who were maybe good last year. Defenses are just really volatile from year to year. So take those into account more and more. In the first week, you're going to see the parentheses, this team is third against receivers, and you're like, it doesn't mean shit yet. But now it's going to start to mean something. So take those into account. It's a number. It's real easy, 1 from 32. Lastly, there's too many guys on IR, Alan Lazard, Paris Campbell, Jalen Reagor, who are going to come back. Damian Harris did, and I had him on 2 teams. He was sitting in my IR spot for free. He's back, and now he's actually a real-life fantasy player. So if you have a free IR spot, go grab one of these guys who I guarantee you're on. I want to go grab him. I want to put another IR spot in 6 weeks or in 4 weeks. Jalen Reagor is going to come back, and I don't know. He's going to break out. He's a first-round pick for the Eagles, and I'm going to say, hey, thanks, week 2, Noah, or hey, thanks, week 3, Noah. That was really thoughtful of you. I'm going to say, oh, yeah, no problem. We're on the same team. In fact, we're the same person. Crazy. Okay, those are my quarter season tips.
Love it.
That's going to win you a ship.
So insightful.
I don't think I'm looking that far ahead to playoffs just yet, but I do like the advice, the general advice.
Well, last season I was in 6 out of 6 playoffs. I got no doubt I'm going to make at least one this year. So I got to be ready.
Love it.
Let's get into week 5 preview with the Packers and Lions on bye. This is something that's very against Noah philosophy. I'm actually keeping Mason Crosby in my lineup despite the bye because he's been killing it. That offense has been killing it.
On your bench, right? Not in your lineup.
Right, on my bench. So drop your guys if you need to. I saw TJ Hawkinson dropped in a few leagues. That's, probably dumb, but that's you do you. So let's get into it. Thursday Night Football. This is the first show ever we previewed Thursday Night Football because we realized it's dumb to give you guys 24 hours to take in this information. So Bucks versus the Bears, and I don't want to advocate for anything that Amazon does, but it is on Amazon Prime, and you can select your commentators, which is, we are living in the future. What year is it? 2030, 2040? Crazy. So
Bezos, man.
Yeah, maybe Bezos will even take away the crowd noise. That's gonna be the ticket to success, right? That's when Amazon really finds success.
All right,
for the first time.
Let's get into it. First, Leonard Fournette probably going to play this week. Out last week, we saw Rojo struggled catching the ball, but he had over 100 yards on the ground. But with Lenny coming back, can't really. I don't know. I don't think I'd start either of them, even with LaShawn McCoy out, Chris Godwin out, OJ Howard out. So Mike Evans, if he plays, he's still nursing that hamstring injury. But if he plays, definitely a wide receiver 1 this week. And Brady, after that 5 touchdown week, if you have Brady, you got to start Brady, right?
I think a quick update on that. Leonard Fournette has been ruled doubtful for the Thursday night game. So I agree. I don't know if the Bucs backfield is something to be salivating over, but if you need to in a pinch, Ronald Jones, I think, is going to get volume again.
I'm worried about Ronald Jones.
Just because his top pass catchers are out. They're playing the Bears, which has a solid secondary. I wouldn't be comfortable starting Brady.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm comfortable starting Brady, but speaking on Ronald Jones, this backfield runs through Brady. And what do we know about Brady backfields? They are not solid at all. Whoever Brady doesn't care about his running back. Whoever's in there and can get 4 yards on a 1st and 10 and catch a ball, that's his guy. So I don't think there's a lot of solidity here. Obviously, Fournette always has that ability to just be the bell cow when he's healthy. But I'm worried about Ronald Jones in the future, getting that trust from Brady that he needs to, especially in the PPR leagues where he was so coveted.
Right. Yeah, they weren't playing him in the red zone, and they put in Keyshawn Vaughn at the end of the game against the Chargers just because he can catch the ball.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I think moving on to the Bears side of the ball, a lot of us, and we'll see if this is similar with Kyle Allen. We think, Foles is an upgrade, but watching that game was really tough to see that Bears offense wasn't moving the ball at all. It didn't look significantly different. You got saved with A-Rob going 7 for 100 and a touchdown, but that was for the most part on the last drive of the game in garbage time, with defenses kind of letting things go. So what is your guys' outlook for the Bears moving forward? Do you think it's going to be kind of a quarterback roulette? What's your outlook on their offense and owning some of those pieces?
Well, you definitely love Allen Robinson. I think everybody that drafted him, you knew his QB wasn't going to be very good either way. So, I mean, no matter what, you're starting Allen Robinson. David Montgomery, he looks okay, but they just don't score that many points. And when your team's not scoring that many points, your running back doesn't get that many goal line carries. So that's something to look at. At this point, he's a flex play at best.
Yeah, I'm worried about David Montgomery, and I'm more worried about Anthony Miller. It looks like that Darnell Mooney, like fifth-round pick out of nowhere, like coming in and taking it away from my baby. But yeah, I've gone from 6 teams with Anthony Miller. I think I'm at 4 now. It's probably going to go down to 0 eventually. There's still value there. I mean, like, this is still his first game with the first full game with the Bears. I'm not saying like, keep him on your bench and hopes, but I'm just saying we don't really know the final picture, and it's not going to become much clearer with this, prime time Thursday night football game against a really good defense. So it's going to be tough. But really,
I don't think the Colts defense is getting enough respect this year. That's a really good defense, just like the Bucs are. And I think David Montgomery's potentially a buy low. Like Noah mentioned earlier, you look at their schedule down the stretch. They play the Lions, the Texans, the Vikings, the Jaguars. They have very exploitable matchups. So I think David Montgomery could potentially break out over the last half of the year. But I don't think it's going to be that much this week with the Bucs.
That's an interesting take. I think moving on to Sunday football, we're going to get into the first matchup, which is already throwing us a curveball. The Bills versus the Titans. I don't know how much we have to go over this given the COVID circumstances around this. I would just touch on a few things, such as A.J. Brown likely to return if they play. So good thing for COVID in that sense. A.J. Brown got an extra week to recover from his injury. Cole Beasley.
I said that last week.
Yeah.
This is your last chance to trade for A.J. Brown.
Yeah, Cole Beasley is getting a lot of targets. He's very involved in that offense. So if you need injuries are kind of ravaging your team and you need someone to throw in there, Cole Beasley is always a good pick, or maybe a DFS play. With the Titans, I don't know how much we need to get more into this game. I think it's likely going to be a bye. So let's move on to the Jaguars and the Texans.
Real quick, though, could be a shootout if it's played, because these are 2 teams with really good offenses with defenses who were decent last year, the defenses are not looking great. So I'm excited for that one. But yeah, Jaguars, Texans. So DJ Chark finally comes out, 2 touchdowns, looking like the guy you drafted. And then Laviska Shenault, an early season Noah guy, looks like the wide receiver 2 to own. I mean, that guy can move, he can groove.
Definitely.
Right. But I mean, that guy, great depth piece to have as well. And the other side of the ball.
And the coach came out and supported him. The coach came out and said he's only scratching the surface of his potential, and he's seeing him improve every day in practice. And when coaches come out and support the young guys, a lot of coaches like to bring them along. But when a coach comes out and toots your own horn, that's something you really look for. And kind of,
you know what's even more important? Laviska Shenault has some swagger. And you know what Gardner Minshew cares about? Is swagger. Yes, DJ Chark might have the production. He might have the talent. But is he going to pull the fans in?
Ooh, that's a good point, Noah.
I don't know. So there could be a Laviska Shenault themed day. I don't know what the.
I'm going to stop you right there. Laviska Shenault is not going to take anything away from DJ Chark's influence on this offense. I think they're 1A at best for Laviska Shenault. Now, I do like both.
I don't know.
I still think it's a 1-2 punch.
I think it's a 1-2.
I'm just saying, in terms of Laviska Shenault's not going to become the guy in the offense where he's the reason that people are
right.
Doesn't
yeah.
Great PPR guy. On the other side of the ball, finally, Joe Mixon. Jared, tell us about Joe Mixon. What do you think about Joe Mixon going forward?
I mean, one of my bold predictions at the beginning of the year was Joe Mixon should be a top 5 pick.
And
I mean,
quote, maybe a top 4 pick.
he hasn't gotten hurt yet, and he's played every
He's the number 8 running back right now.
Number 8 running back. I mean, he needs to score some touchdowns, and he finally got 3 touchdowns. I feel like, his touchdown production is going to even out over the course of the year.
Yeah, I really hope so. And the biggest thing,
the Texans, though.
The biggest thing about, the Texans, right? We're going to see a new offense. I'm really excited for this. I think my guy Brandon Cooks is finally going to get maybe a chance or two. We'll see, but I'm worried that he is going to be a drop. He already is a drop candidate, but I would like him to produce. Do you guys think there's any hope there?
What do you guys think about? I think Bill O'Brien kind of had a necessary role for David Johnson. He traded DeAndre Hopkins away for him. He wanted to prove that was a valuable move. Without Bill O'Brien in the picture, do you think David Johnson's, he's had a pretty good stranglehold on the backfield. Do you think that becomes more of a committee? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think they let Deshaun Watson rip? What are you guys' thoughts on the outlook of the offense in general?
Let him cook. I mean,
I think he's gonna come in. He's gonna want to look good. He's going to a solid team here. He's gonna go with the talent. I mean, but I think what the main thing that any layman's man can do is say, okay, they're not using Deshaun Watson to his full potential. Let's get Deshaun Watson running. Let's get him throwing on the run a little bit more and getting more guys involved so this offense can move down the field. So that being said, I think David Johnson should see some more targets, but I am a little worried that Duke Johnson could come in. I mean, Duke Johnson's just been a staple there for the past few years, but I still don't really think you're valuing David Johnson any differently. Just make sure you put in the right D Johnson into your lineup.
He's got a much nicer schedule moving forward. So
yeah,
if you have him, I would personally hold with him unless you can get some serious value that he hasn't lived up to.
I would too. I could see a big day for David Johnson this week. A matchup I'm really looking forward to, seeing primetime Joe Burrow go up against the Baltimore Ravens, the supposed class of that division. Like we touched on, Joe Mixon arrived last week. He had 3 scores, over 100 rushing yards, and a receiving touchdown, which was very nice to see. Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins are going to be the guys going forward in this offense. They led in targets. A.J. Green was slightly below them, and Joe Burrow and A.J. Green, for whatever reason, don't have as good of a connection as T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd do, and that's definitely something to value. So I'm really excited to see how the Bengals do against this great Baltimore defense. Now, on the Baltimore side of the ball, Mark Andrews, who everyone was hyping up at the beginning of the year, did exactly why you drafted Mark Andrews. 3 catches, bummer.
2 touchdowns.
I look at that, and I don't think that's sustainable, and I'd want to trade Mark Andrews. Now, the tight end market is definitely not as deep as we thought, so you kind of have to hold Mark Andrews if you have him. But I think it's concerning the workload he gets. And another guy I think it's concerning the workload he's gotten is Hollywood Brown. He has not had his breakout game yet. So this could be the week with the Bengals, a very exploitable defense. But, I think your concern as a Hollywood owner. And then that backfield, which I think we all advise to avoid, that's certainly been the situation thus far. Mark Ingram's had 34 carries. Gus Edwards has had 27. Dobbins has only had 15, but they all have played an integral part in that offense. So, I don't know if any of y'all see that any differently, but that backfield is one that I'm certainly avoiding.
If there's one you're targeting for maybe is there anyone you're thinking maybe that it'll change up in the later half of the season? You think it's going to stay this way?
You're just hoping that there's an injury. I mean, you're not hoping that there's an injury, but to make one of these fantasy – like Mark Ingram, you can start him. I would feel okay starting him as a flex. He'll get 10 carries and might get a touchdown. I would have never drafted him. But
here's the thing about the Ravens right now. Okay, they're trying to do this thing they did last year. It's not working. Okay, there's something wrong with Lamar. I don't know what it is. So they're going to have to change.
He can't pass very accurately right now.
They're going to change this offense. I think, for me, and I've said it before. I think J.K. Dobbins gets more targets later in the season. I think he's a guy he's basically droppable, but he's a guy I might want to toss in with a trade. If you're trying to I don't know, if you're trying to target a guy and you might toss a guy in, or just maybe trade a depth piece or a 1 week flyer for a guy. But I think we could see some J.K. Dobbins action later in the season. They're going to have to do something. Yeah. Okay. Good there. Mixon, we talked about. I'm not worried about him.
No.
I think he's going to be great. Panthers, Falcons. Oh, my God. So much to talk about here, especially on the Falcons side of the ball. Let's just get the Panthers over with. This Robbie versus DJ thing is looking like clear. Robbie's the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I have DJ in multiple places. I am holding him. You know, I've gotten some pretty bad offers, but I'm holding it. But let's get to the other side of the ball. I mean, they look bad. They look bad. Julio Jones, not the guy you drafted, to say it in the least. Calvin Ridley, 0 points. One of the weirdest stat lines I can remember. Calvin Ridley, number 1 receiver in all formats, I think, and then just gets a 0. I mean, against the Packers. I mean, the Packers have a good defense. They're not a shutdown defense. They're not the Patriots or some genius
and their
or
offense
whatever.
is so fast paced that you'd expect this game to be some sort of a shootout.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm really Ridley. You don't have to worry about. You plug him in every week.
Ridley.
I'll never not say it like that. It's just you guys got to accept it. But Julio, I have in one league, and I'm very worried about him. Okay,
100%.
he's older. He's very talented, but it looks like that, especially with Matt Ryan looking as bad as he has and Dan Quinn on the hot seat, I'm really worried about like Julio. And like, seriously, I've put out some offers for him against guys that were drafted, 3rd, 4th round, and people were saying no, because why would you want to hop on this train? If you're 4-0 though and you're looking pretty, I kind of would target Julio on the cheap. See how cheap you can get him. If you can just add him to your bench and just say, hey, I'm going to wait until you're looking like Julio, like that you're supposed to be, and maybe he wins you a ship later in the season. Do you guys agree, or are you just abandoning the ship?
I mean, I've been probably one of the biggest Julio fans within my fantasy circles for the last couple of years. I love the way he plays. I love watching him play. But it's just concerning. All the different factors coming in just are so concerning. His age, he still has the juice when he's on the field and healthy. You could see from week 1, he looks great, but he's not healthy. He's dealing with the thing we talked about earlier, hamstring injuries. Matt Ryan looks just about as scared as any quarterback I've ever seen. He's terrified in the pocket, and this offense just isn't rolling the way it used to. They're not getting the garbage time points they used to. Even when they're down, their offense isn't moving. And that was something with Matt Ryan as, on a non-football lens, that's something you took into consideration. When teams are losing and the game script is in that favor, you expect those garbage points like you get from Dak. And that was something that I got for many years from the Falcons. And with this offense, it can't even move the ball when the defense is allowing them to pass. There are major red flags all over this team, and it's hard to watch their football games. But I do agree, Julio could be a trade for target if you're 4-0.
Okay,
I think
so let me
he
give you
could
guys
be a league winner.
Yeah,
so
I got to make
4-0.
one quick point real quick.
Yeah.
Last year, the Falcons finished 7-9, and Julio was not looking good at the beginning and middle of the season. And then his last 3 games of the year, here's the targets he had. 20 targets, 15 targets, 13 targets, 134 yards, 166 yards, 78 yards. They played him while they weren't making the playoffs. They won the last 4 games in a row after going 3.
Jared, you had me at 20 targets, okay?
Like it's not
let
like
me give you some
play.
hypotheticals, because I don't think people are talking about this enough. Let me give you some hypotheticals. So let's say you're 4-0, you're 3-1, you have a great outlook on the season, and you have these guys. So would you give up this guy for Julio? Okay, let's start with Keenan Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it quick.
No.
Okay. How about the Rams guys? Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp.
I would give up Robert Woods for him right now.
I'd give up Woods.
I give up either.
Yeah, I'd probably give up Kupp as well.
DJ Chark.
Yes.
Yeah, brother.
Terry McLaurin.
Ooh.
No.
I'd say they're pretty close.
Amari Cooper.
I'd rather have Amari.
He's the number 1 receiver right now. Of course you keep it Amari.
So safe.
You wish. I mean, yeah. So there's your little baseline. You're talking about. Here's a tough one. AJ Brown.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, Julio.
Okay. All right.
What do you mean?
Okay. I really wanted to touch on Julio because I don't think people are covering it enough, and because it's obviously a tough situation that people are in. So let's move on. Raiders. We got 2 Raiders fans here versus the Chiefs. This is a historical rivalry.
Okay.
Yeah,
It is historical, but it's in recent years. I know Derek Carr had a quote this week where he said, "It's not a rivalry if we keep losing to them."
Yeah, I think looking at this matchup from a fantasy perspective, the Chiefs, you're gonna play your Chiefs. You're gonna play the same Chiefs you always play, and you can expect, even in a game script like last week, they're gonna produce. The only thing of note is that Mecole Hardman has taken over for Demarcus Robinson on the depth chart. He's no longer. He still has the one big play aspect, but he's no longer the snap count limitations that led to that type of outcome. He's on the field. He's getting opportunities. He's someone that I would look to add for depth. And he's one of those Kareem Hunt pieces where, Tyreek goes down. Mecole's got some really good value. Raiders wide receiver core is going to be messy, I think, the whole year. They're dealing with a lot of nagging injuries as well as just, a bunch of B-list type of players. So I don't know if I'd be looking to any of them for fantasy gold. Darren Waller will continue to thrive. And I personally think Josh Jacobs is a trade for candidate. A lot of people ride on that first week blow up, and he's been pretty not as good since week 1. So if you have the pieces and you can make a trade and the person's unhappy with Josh Jacobs, I think he's getting the volume and he'll eventually keep falling in the end zone.
Definitely.
Yeah, well said.
Well said. Okay, Cardinals and Jets this week. The matchup we've all been looking for.
Joe
Kenyon
Flacco,
Drake,
baby. Joe Flacco is back.
starting.
Stream him.
Dude, Joe Flacco's like an all-time guy. Like, he won a Super Bowl. He won a Super Bowl MVP.
He's just a classic guy.
Le'Veon back at practice. I know. Stay in your seats, guys. This is big news. If Le'Veon plays against the Cardinals, I'd only start him if you have to. You're in a dire need of a start. Definitely wouldn't want to. But
it's another one of those hamstring injuries.
Right. Obviously, Jamison Crowder, we touched on it last week. Incredible player. I think we're all pretty high on Jamison Crowder. But on the Cardinals side, Kenyon Drake does not look like a second-round pick at all. Isn't reaching the end zone. He's getting a decent amount of carries. He's just not doing much. And the most important thing, he is not catching the ball out of the backfield.
How many targets he has on the year?
It's got to be like 5.
It's literally 5. And he averaged like 4.5 per game last year with the Card. I don't understand it from an offense.
It's great. We saw Melvin Gordon just go off against the Jets. So if he can't get it done, we said this last week. If he can't get it done this week, it's over. But seriously, if he can get it done, Edmonds, they might just give him the keys to the city. Nothing more to it.
I think much else is needed there. The Eagles and Steelers. The Steelers obviously were idle last week. They're back in action this week. The Eagles offense, although they did win and supported Noah's 49ers missing the playoffs theory, they didn't look all that good. Miles Sanders didn't have that great of a game. Obviously, the 49ers defense, without some pieces, is still better than your average defense. Zach Ertz with a classic 4 catches for 9 yards. Don't know how that's possible, but that did occur. Greg Ward had 7 targets, led them in targets again. If all those receivers are out, potentially he's a low-end flex. I think he could do better with those targets this week than he did last week. Now, on the Steelers side of the ball, both receivers, Juju and Deontay, didn't practice today, but they've been doing that all week. Deontay cleared concussion protocol, and they labeled it a toe injury, which is what he was dealing with the first 2 weeks. They'll both be fine, and they'll be ready to play. You fire them up against the Eagles. I don't expect that good of a game from either running back just because both of these defenses are typically good against the run. But you obviously have to start Miles Sanders or James Conner if you have. But maybe fake DFS.
It's one of those where you're kind of stuck if you took those players with the running back depth that's in the league. I do personally think as a guy who's owned Miles Sanders in a lot of leagues and is relying on him in a lot of places, he does look pretty good when he gets the ball. He's missing tackles. He is plowing through people. He's getting targets. The offense just needs to turn around. And whether you believe that's going to happen or not is your outlook on Miles Sanders. But I don't think the 13 for 46 is a fair representation of kind of the impact and the skill there. So it's kind of one of those buy low on the skill if you believe in it.
I disagree. Don't buy low in Miles Sanders. We've seen the Eagles just not be able to come out of this offensive injury and drought for years. Okay, ever since the Super Bowl. I don't know why you're buying. You shouldn't be buying low on Miles Sanders.
I mean,
He's
if you
my
said
gut.
the same thing, if you said the same thing last year, you missed out on the number one running back on the back half of the year.
I agree with Kieran. I think you can wait a couple weeks. They play the Steelers and Ravens the next 2 weeks, but they play the Cowboys in the fantasy playoffs, and that is just a delicious matchup for Miles
That's
Sanders.
gold.
Yeah, I'm not saying go trade for him right now. I'm saying I think he looks like he's a skilled player. He's playing 2 or 3 horrible matchups in a row. If he puts up less than 10 fantasy points in the next 2 weeks, which is totally plausible, you could get him for super cheap.
It's all about
saying-
value.
Yeah.
It's all about value.
Yeah,
I just
exactly,
I'm not really.
I don't
going
like
out
the
my way
whole
to do it.
no. Yeah.
Well, that is
Exactly.
my answer.
That's
is
fine.
No. Okay.
But you're just saying it's all about value. You're contradicting yourself.
Sure. I'm not looking. You guys are looking for it. I'm not looking for it. So that's the difference.
I'm just
Rams
holding. I'm
versus
holding.
Rams versus Washington. We're going to see a brand new offense on the Washington side of the ball. I'm excited for Antonio Gibson. I think we saw that crazy receiving game from him last week, more garbage time stuff, and it's going to keep happening. So he might even be a buy low because of the lack of the name value right now. Yeah?
I don't know. With Cam Akers coming back, I don't know.
Antonio Gibson is on the
Oh, my bad. I was completely mixed up there. Yeah,
you
Antonio
were.
Gibson, sorry.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Jared agrees.
I love Antonio Gibson going forward, though.
On the other side of the ball, we really thought we figured it out. It's Darrell Henderson. He is the guy. And then Sean Payton's like, hey, you never know what I'm going to do next. I'm one of the best youngest coaches in the league. So I'm glad you guys. I said on the show last week, I traded him away for Derrick Henry, and everyone got mad at me. I mean, not Derrick Henry, the other Henry, the tight end for the Chargers.
Hunter.
Thank you. I'm playing on his name. And even though Hunter Henry had a terrible week in his first week on my squad, I'm very okay with that trade because I just want to get out of those committees. I don't like being in committees. I just want to make decisions on my own personally. And then the rest of the team looking like the Rams. The Rams always just look like the Rams, right? I mean, they're kind of just Rams.
They just really have some people go off every week and then the others don't. And then the next week it's completely switched. So that's the running backs, receivers, tight ends, and quarterback. Like Jared Goff had 10 points last week.
There you go. That's a Jared Goff we know and love.
Exactly.
Moving on to the Dolphins versus the Niners. Can't believe the Niners lost last week. Here's a fun stat. You know who has a touchdown every week of the year so far? Jerick McKinnon. Ooh. That's a solid 6-point floor right there.
Ooh.
And we really thought that the Dolphins were going to break out against the Seattle, but it didn't. It kind of happened. It looks like Parker's the only guy there you really want.
Yeah,
definitely.
Parker's picking up where he left off. He's looking good as a good receiver. But yeah, I thought we all expected kind of a little bit more from that game on both sides of the ball. So I'm sure people are kind of disappointed with the outcome of that game in general.
All right.
Anything
George
else to add there?
Really
George
good.
Kittle. Yeah. I mean, Deebo Samuel came back.
Crazy.
Did okay. Ayuk's hurdle into the end zone. Wow.
Oh, my God. What a cool play.
That was a beautiful play.
Who do you guys want, Deebo or Ayuk the rest of the season?
I got to stick with Deebo.
Yeah, I think Ayuk should be owned in every league, though. Because we're gonna get this. The offense is gonna figure it out. The coaching is too good, and they're gonna have. There's gonna be volume to be had for those guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, moving on to the Giants and Cowboys. Nice little toilet bowl game for the week. Giants have not been good at all this year. Completely terrible. What'd you say, Mike?
First place implications on the line, man.
First place.
Oh my God, I know.
What a world we live in.
Only in 2020, right?
One thing I have to say about the Giants is, Slayton's cooled down. Their receivers don't look that good. Evan Ingram doesn't look good. Devonta Freeman had 11 carries and 4 catches last week.
Do you want to just list the whole team and say they're not good? We can
not
go
good.
on for – they're not good.
Freeman could have some production is what I'm saying. He seems like the only guy that's going to get consistent touches.
Mm-hmm.
I say that as if it's a question because I'm really not sure.
No. You're maybe in a deep league. You're picking him up for a depth or a bye week thing, but basically I'm ignoring the team except for this week Well, you'll find out about that later.
And the Cowboys, Michael Gallup, one of the biggest disappointments of the year. He plays like every down. He runs routes like every down, and he just doesn't get the ball.
Amari
CeeDee
Cooper
Lamb and Amari
be-
Cooper. Amazing.
Amari Cooper could be the wide receiver one.
Like 10 yards, 5 yards underneath, and it's all Dak does is just throw it to him. He'll take off.
Yeah, this offense is just a yardage machine.
And let me just say,
you're safe. Kind of, yeah.
Let me just say, I had gasps from you guys. I had death threats after I said Dak was QB1, and look at us now, QB1 baby. Garbage time is their. It's not even garbage time anymore. It's just their life. It's just.
Dak is the sole reason I could never do fantasy football for a living. I cannot stand the way his production comes. I cannot stand playing against him. I can't do it. It gives me a mini heart attack every week. I hate it. I've played against him all 4 weeks this year.
And Kieran's anger is why I could do fantasy football for a living, because it's just so satisfying to hear that after being right about it. I love it.
Let's be real. It's been 4 weeks. Russell Wilson is less than a point below him. Josh Allen's within 5 points of him. We'll see it through. A matchup with, I guess, some intrigue given the health concerns and COVID concerns going over this week is the Broncos versus the Patriots. The Broncos are banged up. Noah Fant and KJ Hamler are hurt. Now, Jerry Jeudy, you would think, would step into that volume. He did not last week, although he looked great on that catch where he absolutely mossed that Jet defender and scored a touchdown. So, if Jeudy starts to get the volume, he could become a low-end flex. I don't think you can trust him yet. But the Broncos, they just don't have much in the way of production outside of Melvin Gordon. I think he's going to get
unless
a lot
you're
of carries.
Desperate. There's nobody to start, I think.
I don't think he'll have the game he did against the Jets, who most likely have to start him given the running back position. And on the Patriots side of the ball, like we mentioned earlier in the show, Damian Harris looked good. He looked really good. And, I know Bill Belichick hates fantasy relevant running backs, but Damian Harris could become a guy that is startable at some point. I definitely would like to wait and see how they utilize Burkhead, James White. I don't see Sony Michel coming back and having any kind of role. I think he can almost be dropped in deep leagues and even in 10 and 12-man leagues as well.
Yeah.
And, the quarterback, do they go Stidham? Do they go Hoyer? It remains to be seen when Cam Newton will be able to come back. It didn't look pretty for Julian Edelman or N'Keal Harry. Damiere Byrd had quite a day. I don't know if you're comfortable starting any of those Patriots wide receivers, given the quarterback situation.
They all need to be rostered, maybe not Bird. But one thing about the backfield, though, is I think James White will prevail as the PPR guy that he usually is. He had this, his father passed away. He was out for 2 weeks. But I think he's going to come in. He had a great PPR day. Didn't have really enough carries to be confident. But I think that they're going to have Damian Harris run into the ball, James White catches the ball, and that's what it's going to look like. Colts versus Browns. We saw the Browns look like a new team against Dallas last week. Odell Beckham finally came out with that game that the Odell Beckham craziness, the pass and the 50-yard run. Absurd. So I'm selling the Browns, and then we have Kareem Hunt about to be the RB1 for a few weeks, it looks like, and Darnell Johnson. Darnell Johnson looked good. They just have another guy back there waiting. Why not? So Darnell Johnson's going to be a great fill-in for y'all, especially in standard. He didn't get a single reception. I think that's obviously Hunt's field. But I think this is good. Maybe not against the Colts, but with Chubb out, this is going to give, I think, Jarvis a little more volume, and I think Odell a little more volume. We saw Odell catch that. 3 touchdowns, but there was a slant. So they are bringing him to be like, hey, we don't have to run every single touchdown, and we can pass the ball. We do have Odell Beckham Jr., who is still a perennial talent. He's just on a terrible team.
I think his talent has never been questioned. It's the offense that surrounds him and the way they're going to use him. Like I said last week, this had to be the game. This had to be the game where he had to come through for fantasy owners. For 2 years straight, you've been disappointed. What are your guys' temperatures on Odell Beckham Jr.? I know a lot of people are feeling a lot of different ways. Would you be looking to try and upgrade? Would you be looking to hold him? Because if I'm not, I don't have any shares of Odell Beckham, but I know I would be kind of lost if I did.
I
I'd be
personally
looking
be
to move him
pushing him.
because you think about the ways he scored. It was on a reverse pass from Jarvis Landry and then a reverse. It wasn't just traditional, we're going to line up and throw the ball to Odell Beckham. He only had 5 catches and then the 2 rushes. So he really only touched the ball 7 times. I don't think anyone expects this Odell Beckham to happen every week, but if you can get someone that believes in, Odell Beckham of a few years past and can pay up for him, then I'd certainly be taking the temperature of his market.
Definitely.
I definitely feel a little better about him after this week than I have done in the past, in like the rest of this previously in the season. I don't think he's like absolutely this guy's not gonna be relevant for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm more of a hold. I don't want to do anything too rash. But I mean,
I just think if you want to make that move, now's when you make that move off the big week. If you got to make the decision off the big week and get him off your team. And with that, I will be getting off this team just for the week. I have to sign off a little early. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks, Kieran.
Shoot us Twitter questions as always.
Well done.
See you, boys.
All right. Thank God. Now the 3 most attractive guys will take up the rest of the Zoom screen. Okay.
Can I say something real quick for this?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So I was an Aaron Jones owner a couple years ago before his breakout really last year. And the theory was always free Aaron Jones. Jamal Williams, yes, he's good. He does not need the ball. And the theory here is now free Jonathan Taylor. Jordan Wilkins and Nyheim Hines the ball as much combined as Jonathan Taylor, who ran for almost twice the amount of yards that the other 2 did on their carries. Jonathan Taylor is a special talent. He needs to be getting the ball a ton of time.
And I think he's totally a trade target too. I think this is totally a tactical thing by the Colts. I think they're saying, listen, this is our rookie. We're not looking that good this year. Let's win games. If Nyheim Hines and Jordan Wilkins need to run out the clock, then for sure. But when they're being pressed, I think that Jonathan Taylor is going to get those carries. And one of my bold predictions was he's going to be the rushing leader. I don't, it's a bold prediction for a reason, but I think he still has a shot. I think he could come out and if he gets those like 22, 25 yard carry games, I don't know if they're looking to take all his carries in the first season, obviously, but his volume should point upwards. In the passing game of the Colts, I'm worried. I think T.Y. People are saying drop T.Y. Hilton. I'm not dropping T.Y. Hilton yet. I think Paris Campbell's going to come back and offer some value as well and kind of boost the offense. So we'll see about that. Moving on to the Vikings and the Seahawks, this should be a good game. I mean, those are 2 fun offenses right now. The Vikings have just been up and down, but you're firing up Justin Jefferson, obviously. You're firing up Adam Thielen, obviously.
Dalvin
Start Dalvin Cook? Yeah, probably. This is a really easy game. There's not much to be said about this game. Anything else?
Real quick at the Chargers, Justin Herbert has a really great schedule going forward. With the injury to Austin Eckler, a lot of Joshua Kelly's are going to be owned in a lot of leagues. I do think he's a playable guy. Justin Jackson is going to be the other head of the 2-headed dragon. Wouldn't be looking to play him at all. We're talking about the Seahawks right now.
No, there's nothing more to say. Go ahead.
No, there was nothing else to say.
Okay, cool. And, so the Chargers playing the Saints, and Michael Thomas is supposed to be coming back this week. Jared Cook still dealing with that groin injury. We don't know what's going to happen there. Really, in the Saints offense, you're starting Kamara. Latavius Murray kind of had a bit of a showing last week, scoring some touchdowns. I think you can play him when you're playing worse teams.
Yeah, like terrible teams like the Detroit Lions, right?
Exactly. And I honestly, I think
that's those goal line carries.
Yep.
All right. Well said. I think Jared Cook will have a decent finish of the season with Michael Thomas back. I think that's the recipe for Jared Cook's success, and I think the whole offense success. Let's get into some waiver watch. We mentioned him earlier. Keyshawn Vaughn looking like a guy you could throw on the bench right now and see what the Buccaneers do. And then again, pick up those guys in IR.
Guy I like is Eric Ebron, who I've seen on the waiver wire for a couple leagues.
He should be on the waiver wire.
Well, he had a bye last week. I think that's why a lot of people dropped him. But this guy, the Steelers pass the ball a lot, and Eric Ebron can only catch. He can't block at all. He's basically a receiver that lines up right next to the tackle. So, I mean, with the amount of depth at tight end, like I picked up Logan Thomas last week to stream with Jared Cook hurt. Eric like if you can snag an Eric Ebron, I feel like Eric Ebron's a solid enough play at tight end.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, a couple of quarterbacks, because this week may be tight for quarterbacks. You already have Stafford and Rodgers on bye. Tannehill and Josh Allen could be up in the air. Cam Newton obviously out with COVID.
Mahomes.
Herbert has a great matchup this week playing on Monday Night Football in primetime. He just looks good, too. He looks legit. So I think Justin Herbert could be a guy you're targeting. Plus, he plays Monday. So if you have Josh Allen or Ryan Tannehill, you can know you'll know if they're going to play by Monday night. And another guy, Daniel Jones, purely based off of his matchup. He does not look good. That Giants offense, like we said, looks horrible. But they're going to have to score points to stay up with the Cowboys. He is going to have to score. And he's going to have to carry that offense. I think he could find a way in the end zone, rushing and passing too. So I think he could be a play if you have a quarterback that's out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right, trade targets, or you guys want to do who you guys are selling right now?
Well, I'm gonna start with my targets. I mentioned Antonio Gibson earlier. I mean, I think if you can just sneak in before the name gets too big, go for it. And then I wasn't gonna say it because I'm currently trying to get Justin Jefferson from Kieran in the keeper league, but I think Justin Jefferson might be the biggest buy low in the league in football right now.
Buy low.
Yeah, I think he's still a buy low. He's just hasn't had, he's had 2 games where we've seen him do well against bad defenses, and I think that he could just slide into the Diggs role just like that. Maybe doesn't have the personality, but definitely got the talent. So
he
go grab him.
Does. I got one of each. My buy is going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think you've seen the floor with Clyde, and if you have him in a PPR league, he's gotten 10 points at least every week. They've played the Ravens, the Chargers, the Patriots, teams that have good rushing defenses. He still haven't played the Raiders. Sorry, Jared. Is an exploitable match. Playing him this week, so he could explode this week. This may be your last chance to buy Clyde. And a guy that I want to sell is Devin Singletary. And obviously, you have to be deep at running back to do so. Running back, like we've said, is very thin. So this is basically depending on what you have at running back on your team. But Zach Moss has been hurt, and Devin Singletary looks great, but he's had very exploitable matchups at the beginning of this year, and it's going to continue for the next few weeks. So it's not necessarily a sell high right now. But his schedule after the bye, this is obviously looking a little more ahead. They play the Chargers, the 49ers, the Steelers, the Broncos, and the Patriots, which I don't think that's a guy you want to rely on down the stretch. And if Zach Moss takes a little bit out of his production when he comes back, Devin Singletary could be someone that does not produce as well as you expect in the second half of the year.
Yeah. Well, my guy.
That was an incredible argument.
It was.
I love that.
My guy.
That's good.
This is going to be a lot worse of an argument. It's Josh Jacobs. And purely just because I feel like the touchdown production has to come back from that week 1, 3 touchdown performance. We've been doing a lot of play action on the goal line, throwing the ball to fullbacks and tight ends. But Josh Jacobs has been involved, and hopefully our O-line is getting healthier. So that's a guy like another guy, if you can get him for the right value, and that's Robbie Anderson. I feel like if we were to redraft, Robbie Anderson would be going in the 4th or 5th round of draft.
Yeah.
And
where DJ Moore went.
a little bit behind where DJ Moore currently went. And if we think he could be better than DJ Moore going forward, then I feel like you're not going to have to pony up as much for a guy like that just because people are going to see, oh, I drafted Robbie Anderson 125th overall, and this guy's offering me the guy he drafted 65th overall. But that could be a way to go.
He's seen heavy volume. He's 10th overall in the league in targets.
Not just that deep threat anymore.
And only 1 touchdown, so he can have some bigger games too.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is a crazy season, so bear with us here. But let's get into some dude and dud of the week. We're usually very good at dude and dud, but
we're good at dud.
Brandon Cooks, I had my Rams D did all right. I thought they were going to do much better. Brandon Cooks 0 was my dude. Michael with T.J. Hawkinson got his 2 for 9, and thank God he got a touchdown. There you go, Mike.
On the end zone, baby.
And then Gesicki should have had a great game against the Seahawks. I mean, this is just why if fantasy was easy, then that's what we wouldn't get paid the big bucks to do it. So
yeah.
And then Kieran, Darrell Henderson again, 22 rushing yards, 4.8 points. I don't know. Dud of the week, I kind of hit on Kelsey, 3 for 70. I mean, 10 PPR. That's obviously not a great week for Kelsey. Keenan Allen, 8 for 62. It's all right. Julio Jones, obviously, great dud there. Jared. And then McLaurin for Kieran had a great game. So I think we hit on 2 out of the 8, maybe 3 of the 8 there. This week, this is where we're going to change it around, right?
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Right, guys? Definitely. Absolutely.
All
right.
not to
who
beat
you guys?
a dead horse. You go first, but I don't want you beating this dead horse too much.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, man.
No, this is your pick. I'm referring to your pick.
You know what? I'll just take it since neither
Yeah.
are aggressive. And it's good to keep in mind that this is also based off of daily fantasy as well. So, for example, when we say Keenan Allen or Travis Kelce, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have a bad game. You should bench them. It's just don't expect as much in DFS.
Right.
It's a guy we've talked about a lot, and I'm going to give a shout out to Karan in each one of his recaps for our fantasy league. He's a Cardinal fan. He always says David Johnson is bad at football, and I don't necessarily disagree with that statement. But the Jags just let Joe Mixon break out. I could see David Johnson breaking out and scoring a couple touchdowns. He's going to be my dude of the week.
Well, my guy is DK Metcalf, and I'm going to go as far as saying that DK Metcalf will be the top scorer this week in fantasy.
I really like that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
My dude of the week, I just like to mix it up on you guys. I had Kenyon Drake written in there. I think he'll have a good week. But my dude of the week is Darius Slayton. He's the best receiver for the Giants. We've seen the Cowboys defense just able to be exploited. I think that Daniel Jones is even streamable. Darius Slayton, he might have one of those classic Slayton 2-touchdown weeks right now. But the Giants, I think, have 3 touchdowns on the season, which I think is the number, which is just less than a lot of players, which is crazy. All right, bad news for me. Kieran's due to the week is Justin Jefferson, who I've been trying to get off him. Can I get some trade advice from you guys? All right, keeper league, you keep 8 players. He needs a tight end. I'm going to trade him Noah Fant for Justin Jefferson and a second. Is that too much for Noah Fant?
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have Justin Jefferson probably.
Yeah.
Than Noah Fant?
Yeah. I mean, who's his tight end?
He needs a tight end. I think it's like Jared Cook or something. Anyways, let's get into dud of the week. My dud of the week, talked a lot earlier. Miles Sanders. I mean, this offense, it's against the Steelers, so I mean, it's kind of like a cheat dud. But I think he gets under I think he's got 6-7 points in maybe 10 in PPR.
I like it. Well, I'm going with a guy that you guys think is going to break out, and I'm going with Jonathan Taylor. Purely because I think this game is going to go by really quickly. There's going to be but the Browns run the ball a lot. Even with Chubb gone, they're going to be running the ball. The Colts run the ball a lot too, and they run the ball with 3 guys. So yeah, I'm going Jonathan Taylor.
I feel like this one's going to bite me, but I'm just going to say Mark Andrews just because of the volume that he's been seeing. If he doesn't score 2 touchdowns on 3 targets, then it's going to be a dud. So I'm playing the touchdown game here.
You got a vendetta for this guy.
And I'm saying Mark Andrews is your dud of the week.
Love
All right,
it.
there you go.
All right. That's the part where I don't love is our DFS lineups from last week.
Woo!
Did not look good for me. I don't remember who I played, but it was not good. I finished in last. Michael got first.
Again.
Kieran got second, and Noah got third. So the standings now in first is Michael.
Crushing
Second
it,
is
Mike.
Kieran. I'm in third. Noah's in fourth.
There we go. Here's the winning lineup this week, though. We got Teddy Bridgewater, Derrick Henry, Mike Davis, Robbie Anderson, Amari Cooper, Darius Slayton, Jonathan Smith, James White, and the Panthers D.
Love that Bridgewater play.
Okay. I believe I've won the last 3 weeks, but I will say the constant in my lineup has been Mike Davis. He's always discounted, even given this week. He is the John Brown of this week. Plug him in your Plug him in your DFS lineup, and you'll have a good time. Deshaun Watson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Mike Davis, DJ Chark, T. Higgins, Darius Slayton. So going a little cheaper on the receivers. George Kittle, Damiere Byrd, and the Rams D.
All right, I got Dak Prescott, Mike Davis as well, David Johnson, Tyreek Hill, John Brown, throwback. George Kittle, Mecole Hardman, Antonio Gibson, and the Colts.
What is this lineup? What is that lineup?
I appreciate
You
it.
got to type that one in there.
Real quick, I misspoke. I'm not playing Robbie. I'm actually playing Marquise Brown. I think he's going to break out this week. And then Kieran is a mystery. And with that, it's another great episode of Guys Being Dudes Fantasy Football. You can follow us on Twitter at Dudes Football. You can find us on all of the major podcasting, including
Everyone.
iTunes and YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sorry you can't see Kieran's pretty face on the way out, but life is rough.
Yep.
And with that, we
Good luck this week.
are out as soon as I can do this right for the first time ever. And maybe
Hook 'em.
Yes. Hopefully.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.